Good morning, caregivers and grandparents, and welcome to our April 21st Zoom meeting. We're very excited to have you with us today. We're going to ask you that you make sure you put your name and email in the chat to be eligible to be selected for a $50 gift card. Please note on your calendar that May the 19th, our meeting will be on trauma informed care, and we hope that you will plan to join us. Please notice certificates of attendance will be provided to anyone who would like to receive one. Please submit your name to Barbara Turpin in the chat if you would like to have a certificate. Okay, today's topic is on early intervention programs, the process by which infants and toddlers with disabilities become eligible for early intervention services under the IDEAL Part C. Um, the presenter, Diane Fox, is a deputy director of training, technical assistance, and practice at the Ohio Department of Youth, Children and Youth. She oversees the statewide coordination of training, technical assistance, and advancement of best practices. Please know that prior to coming to the Department of Children and Youth, Diane served as the assistant deputy director of early children childhood initiatives for the Department of Developmental Disabilities. She holds a master's degree in special education from West Virginia University, my mom's hometown,
Yay.
and a bachelor's degree in social welfare from Ohio State University. Diane resides in Grove City with her husband Ben. She enjoys traveling and spending time with her grandsons, Grant and Cole. So please welcome Diane Fox. Ms. Fox, take it away.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I will apologize right off the bat. My voice quality is not really good right now. I have a terrible cold, but I'll do my best. So let's get started. So today we're going to explore what is early intervention, how it supports young children and their caregivers, and how to get started and what to expect if you would need to access early intervention. So, from the grandparent's perspective, what you would expect. First of all, what is early intervention? So, recently, the Department of Children and Youth became the lead agency for early intervention. Every state in the United States and numerous territories participate in the Federal Individual with Disabilities Education Act, Part C, which is services and supports for infants and toddlers until they turn age 3 and their families to provide supports and services um, to um, to improve their developmental outcomes. Doing this, the state or the state lead agency is responsible for developing a coordinated system of services for infants and toddlers, and then focusing on helping families support their child's development in these most critical years. The first 5 years of life are critical for brain development, and early intervention capitalizes on that. Why it matters: early intervention helps the caregivers, and from now on, I'm going to say grandparents since this is the audience. So helps grandparents help their grandchildren learn to move, talk, eat, play, build social and emotional skills, which is the foundation of all learning. So early intervention is a program that will help infants and toddlers, believe it or not, think about getting ready for kindergarten. So those foundational skills that are so critical to future academic success. It also supports you, the caregiver, every step of the way. Early intervention has a definition of parent that is very different than other definitions of parent that you will find. And this is from the federal law. So, and this has been in existence for a long time. So it was designed this way almost from the very beginning. Parent means biological or adopted parent of a child, a guardian, a foster parent, or person acting in place of a biological parent or adoptive parent with whom the child lives. And that is where grandparents fall in, which means you would meet the definition of a parent if you have a infant or toddler who needs early intervention services. This means that you can access your parental rights as the grandparent because your grandchild is living with you and you are taking care of them. And that means that the service coordinator or the early intervention system would ask you for consent to provide services, and you would participate actively in the IFS Individualized Family Service Planning Process, or IFSP as we call it, and also making decisions around transition when they turn 3. And that's very important and very different than other programs that you may encounter. So if you have a grandchild who needs early intervention, there is your role as a caregiver. Again, IDA recognizes you as the parent, so you are afforded all the parental rights and responsibilities. If it is important to note, if the biological parent or adoptive parent wishes to exercise their parental rights in EI, they may do so at any time, unless a judicial order states otherwise. Early intervention providers partner with you to understand your child's developmental needs, understand the nature of your grandchild's disability, and I think this is a very important aspect of early intervention. Some of the diagnosed conditions that cause the developmental delays or disabilities in infants and toddlers can be complicated, particularly at very young ages. Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, those kind of conditions, genetic disorders that impact the child's developmental milestones as well. So understanding the nature of the disability, in other words, what's causing it or what's most likely causing it, often leads to the clue of how we can help support that developmental milestone progress. Practice skills during your daily routines. This is a very important aspect of early intervention. It looks very different than, say, a special needs preschool or going into an outpatient therapy setting for PT or physical therapy, those kind of services which EI provides, but they do it in a very different way. Knowing how children grow and knowing the multiple times you're going to be doing things like feeding, playing, changing diapers, cleaning them up, giving them choices, that we capitalize on those activities and routines that you do over and over again, and provide our interventions and strategies during those activities and times, because the more you practice, the more we're increasing the brain connectivity and the more likelihood that the child is going to gain and master those developmental skills. And in the end, feeling confident in helping your grandchild grow and meet advancing developmental milestones. So who is eligible for early intervention? There are 2 ways that a child can be eligible for early intervention. First, they have to be an infant or toddler, so birth until their 3rd birthday. They either have a diagnosed condition that has a very high likelihood of resulting in a developmental delay. Examples include Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. NAS in Ohio is an automatic eligibility diagnosis. And newborns with extreme prematurity, born less than 28 weeks, or they've been in the neonatal intensive care unit, say greater than 30 days, or
Diane,
newborns. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Can you tell us what NAS stands for,
yeah,
please?
that's
Thank you.
neonatal abstinence syndrome. So these are the babies that are born positive for opioids and those kind of drugs. And so there's this condition largely impacting their regulation and neurosystems. Okay. So diagnosed condition, and we have on our website the list of the conditions that are automatically eligible. There are several more. And then developmental delay. This is when a family or a physician may become concerned about a child's development in one or more areas, and they request an evaluation. So 2 disciplines, it can be one person, but they hold 2 different licensures. So the law requires that you get 2 different perspectives. So for example, I'm a licensed social worker and I'm a developmental specialist. I could do an evaluation on my own because I have 2 different licensures and 2 different perspectives, an educational or special instruction perspective, and then the social aspect. Or it could be 2 different disciplines, like a social worker and a developmental specialist, but they don't hold those two licensures, or a therapist and a developmental specialist. The makeup of that evaluation team should be those who will address the needs or the reason why the grandparent called and needed the referral to early intervention. So we have 2 tools that we use, a Bailey and a Battelle. So these are developmental tools that are designed to evaluate all 5 developmental domains of an infant and toddler. And if a child is 1.5 standard deviations in one or more developmental domain, then that means that they're eligible for early intervention. There are sometimes situations where the tool is not sensitive enough to pick up the delay. And so the professionals can use what we call clinical opinion to say, even though the tool did not get at the 1.5, maybe it got a 1.3, we believe that they are at a 1.5 standard deviation in their development, and this is why. So 2 ways: diagnosed condition, or there's a documented developmental delay. Any questions about that? So what should you expect? Um, um, you make a referral, you or anyone, your physician, a neighbor, it doesn't matter. Anyone can make a referral to help me grow our central intake and referral for early intervention. If your situation is such that Children's Services is involved, Children's Services is required to make a referral to early intervention for any child who has been referred because of substance use, or they've been exposed to the substance use, and or have experienced abuse and or neglect, substantiated abuse and neglect. So those are required, what they call CARA referrals, and they go directly into the Help Me Grow central intake and referral. Once the referral is made, central intake and referral contacts the parent. So in your case, it'd be the grandparent, and they give them information about the referral, at the referral source. So it's not an anonymous referral. We do say the physician made the referral, or your neighbor made the referral, or whatnot. So why they made the referral, what the concern was, and then get consent to move it to the Early Intervention Service Coordination Agency. Once consent is provided, then the referral is assigned the Early Intervention Service Coordination Agency, which is at the county or local level. About 60 of our service coordination agencies are county boards of developmental disabilities. And other agencies might include the local health department, local school districts or the ESC, Job and Family Services. So multiple different agencies. The key connector here is that the agency has to be a agency of the local Family and Children First Council. So any of those agencies that are required to be on council can become the Early Intervention Service Coordination Agency. But most likely, 60 out of 88, they will be your local county board of developmental disabilities will be your service coordination agency. So once it gets to the service coordinator, All families in early intervention receive service coordination. It's similar to like a case manager. They assist grandparents and other caregivers with navigating through the early intervention system. So determining eligibility, the process that I just described to you before. And once eligible, then we dig a little deeper and conduct a child assessment and offer a family-directed assessment. So the child assessment's intended to be used for program planning purposes. So we know you're eligible, but what is going on and maybe why? So are we having fine motor delays because there's some sensory issues? Are we having regulation issues because we don't understand our bedtime routine? So trying to dig in a little bit in these developmental domains that are delayed or families are having challenges with. And that's where the parent or the family assessment comes into. So this is where the family gets to provide their input and share their story and their journey with their grandchild. You know, from anything from how you became the guardian or the parent of your grandchild to your concerns about, you know, how your routines are going. You know, are they doing okay getting in and out of the car? Are they doing okay going to different stores? Mealtime working, you know, how is our day-to-day family life? Is it pleasant? It has some bumps from time to time, but we figure it out. Or there's certain routines that are just hard for the family. Those are the ones we'll want to focus on to help you with. So after that is conducted, an individualized family service plan, or IFSP as we like to call it, is developed with your input. Grandparent who's serving as parent is a required member of the IFSP team. So you assist with identifying the outcomes, which that is what your team will be working towards. And then also identifying the services, the early intervention services needed to address those outcomes, which includes how often they'll come, which discipline will come, and any other strategies or interventions that might need to take place. All of that has to be done within 45 days of the referral getting to the EI Service Coordination Agency. So it's, in some situations, it feels like a long time, and in some situations, it's very quick. It really just depends on where the family is at and all the information they have to take in. And then once services, the EI services are on that plan, they must begin within 30 calendar days. And that is from the signature, from the date that the grandparent would sign the IFSP. And then any of these blue, these are highlights there. Those are links that will take you to additional information. There is abundant and really good resources on our EI website about what to expect, and it breaks it down like an eligibility, the IFSP planning. It breaks it down really nicely, and there's also videos that go with it, and real families who've experienced Ohio early intervention share their story too. So it might be worthwhile to check that out. So what are the early intervention services? So we are required to provide service coordination and then all the services listed on the right-hand side. Not every child needs all those services. So that is part of the evaluation and assessment process, and the IFSP development is to identify which services are needed to address the outcomes. So service coordination provided again to all families. You will have your service coordinator from intake, so to speak, so from the beginning and through transition when the child turns 3 and transitions to other programs. We implement in Ohio what we call evidence-based practices, and that is documented on the mission and key principles of early intervention that can be found on the website too. And we use what we call a primary service provider approach to teaming. And so the 1-star services, special instruction, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and the service coordinator form what we call a core team. So this core multidisciplinary team is assigned to your family, and one of them will become your primary service provider, and that's decided at the IFSP meeting. And it's decided based on multiple things. Largely, which discipline is the best to address the outcomes that you have developed on the IFSP. Sometimes there are situations where things are complicated or things change, and additional services, or what we call secondary support professionals, can come in and assist the primary with understanding the nature of what is going on, or provide services with the primary service provider. So it looks very different than, say, what you would experience at a clinic, where you would go in for PT, go in for OT, but this way everyone is observing, everyone is seeing and hearing, and parents are not given less likelihood of conflicting information and trying to remember who said what and what I have to do, that kind of thing. So again, we focus on those natural occurring routines and activities that all families have to do, or families that want to do. It is not uncommon to have outcomes that are written like, I want Allison to walk down the aisle at my wedding in December. That's a very important event for a family. This is an actual true event for that family, and they desperately wanted their little girl to be able to walk down the aisle with them. So that's very impactful, and it's meaningful to the family, and that is what they want to see happen related to their child's development. So services happen where your child lives, learns, and plays, in natural environments like the home, or childcare. If your grandchild is in a childcare setting, the interventionist can also provide support to that childcare teacher. Any questions about that?
Brenda, did you have a question about how to get a referral? Did you want to
Okay.
ask a question?
Yes.
Brenda put something in the chat.
Yes. Well, I've got a whole slide for that one.
Okay.
That will be answered. Good. And then I wanted, this is a real live example. So we asked for success stories from our providers, and they are so much fun to read. And this one is a Josie and her grandmother. And she was 18 months old when Grandma received custody of Josie. And Grandma took Josie to her child visit. And during that visit, the pediatrician shared concerns that Josie wasn't meeting some of the age expected milestones, but was really concerned about her gross motor skills. She wasn't walking yet, nor was she crawling. And so Grandma agreed to the referral. The referral was made, and Grandma consented. And so an IFSP, so she was determined eligible through developmental delay, so went through the evaluation process. And then, the goal for Josie was to be able for her to walk like to the car, or even throughout the house, because Grandma was having to pick her up and carry her. And even though Josie was very young, she weighed like 40 plus pounds. So it was very heavy. So it was hard on Grandma. So they were receiving physical therapy services. So that was the primary service provider identified by the team. And they also consulted and ordered orthotics for Josie, because she had some weaknesses in her ankle and just some low tone and that kind of thing. So that was what the intervention was about. And it looked like, things like getting her favorite toy in a place where she had to kind of walk, or at least use mobility to get to her favorite toy or thing. And so she would be encouraged to use these skills. So one thing that Grandma figured out, which I really enjoyed reading this, because I think as grandparents we figure things out quicker sometimes than others do, But she figured out that Josie loved praise. She loved it when she clapped for her. She loved it when she, just a good job. That was highly motivating for Josie. Once Grandma figured that out, guess what Josie got every time she tried to walk or crawl? She got a lot of praise. And so and 10 months later, so today she's 28 months old, she's still using her shoe orthotics, but she's walking everywhere. And she's running around everywhere too. Can anyone kind of guess what Grandma's next goal is? I think she wants her to slow down a little bit because now she's having trouble catching up with her because she's so darn fast. But it was just so much fun reading that. You can almost picture Josie and Grandma in your head. And there are a couple resources there too, stepping stones that literally walks you through each of the steps of early intervention.
Diane, I just want to let people know that um, you will eventually provide us with the PowerPoint so we can
Yes.
post it on our website, OGKC website too. So people can go to it and then click on those links. And then I'm assuming you'll give us your website at some point during the presentation
Oh,
also.
yes. Yes.
Thank
I
you.
got that. Yes, you're welcome. I love the interest. So here are some common questions about early intervention. Does it cost anything? So service coordination, evaluation, assessment, and transition services are at no cost to the family. The EI services like physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy in Ohio are subject to a fee. So it's a system of payments that we have. If the child is on Medicaid or WIC or any of those programs, they're deemed not eligible. The family's deemed not eligible to pay. So all the services are available at no cost. But all families receive 100 units. So 1 unit equals an hour of service of EI services at no cost to your family. And the service coordination walks the family through this process and tracks that for the family. Do you need a doctor's note or prescription or referral? No, anyone can refer. What if I'm not sure if something is wrong? So you're not really sure if the development's on track or not. I would say if when in doubt, just go ahead and make it the referral. But later on, I'm also going to share a ASQ Sparkler app where it's an app on your phone where you can track your child's development, and it's free. And it also will give you some feedback about like what's next and how to promote the next developmental milestones. And if you participate in that, and the screening would come back what we call suspect, then you would get a call from central intake and referral. And they would go over it and offer an early intervention referral too. So you have several pathways. You can do ongoing developmental screening from your phone there, or you could go ahead and call and make the referral. Key takeaways: early intervention makes a big difference in a child's development and the ability of the caregiver to understand the child's needs. And this is a big one for those of you who like dollars and cents and track funding and that kind of thing. Research suggests that for every dollar invested in early intervention, the potential savings is $10 plus. So for every dollar you put in, you're going to recoup $10 or more in future education costs. This is the picture that I like to share. When you look at early intervention and you look at it in thirds, a third of our children will receive early intervention and will not receive any other special education or IEP services in the future. 2/3 or another third of our children will go on to be eligible for preschool special needs or Part B services, but do not go on past preschool. So that's 2/3 of the children that receive early intervention services that we have considerably reduced the cost of future special education services. And then there's a third of our children, largely due to the nature of their disability, that will need services for most of their educational career there. But even in those situations, early intervention decreases the cost and the needs considerably. So it's a huge win because I can't think of any investment anyone could make today that would render those kind of returns. So the return on investment is very high.
In
I
terms
think
of
what,
uh,
mhm.
the transition services, when the child reaches that 3-year mark, then what are the transition services that um, the service providers are working on? How does that happen?
Oh, that's a great, and I forgot to put that in there, didn't I? So yes, so transition services, that's a huge benefit of participating in early intervention. So no more than 9 months before the child turns 3, the service coordinator works with the grandparent and decides and identifies, what do you want to see next? Does the team suspect that the child may be eligible for Part B services? Do they not suspect that the child may be eligible for Part B services? Because remember, a third of them will not be eligible. And if we suspect the child is eligible for Part B services, does the parent or the grandparent in the situation want to proceed with Part B eligibility? Part B eligibility is different than Part C eligibility. So it's a whole different eligibility process. So there are situations where the EI team may suspect that the child is Part B, but in fact, after Part B conducts their evaluation, they're not. So it's just totally different eligibility criteria. So to pass, we suspect the child may be eligible for Part B, or we don't suspect the child is eligible. If we don't suspect that the child is eligible, then we work with the parent or grandparent to identify maybe other early care and education opportunities. We have a program in Ohio, and it's fairly new, that DCY offers, and that is called the EI Exeter. So these are for children that are exiting early intervention, but may not qualify for Part B services. So they would have an opportunity to apply for what we call the early care and education preschool services. So they would go in as a typical, but would be eligible for that services because they have been in early intervention. And that is something fairly new that we piloted, I think, in a couple southern counties, and it was quite successful. So that's a huge resources. Or some families, want their grandchild to maybe experience their local communities preschool, or they don't want a preschool experience for their child. So that is something the grandparent and the service coordination and the EI team would work together. And you could continue to track your grandchild's development on the ASQ app as well too, because it goes up to age 5, I believe. So that would be a resource as well. So it really depends on what the family wants to see happen after the child turns age 3. If the team suspects that the child is eligible for Part B services, then the service coordinator would offer a referral to the local school district. And the parent, so in this situation would be a grandparent, would need to consent to that referral. All along, as part of the early intervention services, we are reporting to the local school district information, like very basic information that, hey, you've got a child that resides in your school district that is participating in early intervention. So that's an IDA requirement that we share that information with the local school districts. So every quarter we share that information with each local school district. And so they know, they have a heads up that this many children may be coming to us. So that's very important for them in their planning purpose. They don't get a lot of details, but they do get that information. So that's another way we prepare for transition For those that we believe that are may be eligible for Part B, then the service coordinator, the team, and the grandparent would work together, and they would add the local school district as part of their team. All children will have an IFSP outcome developed related to transition. And so for kids that are suspected of being Part B eligible, the team will want to identify activities to support that transition. Anything from, making sure if it's a communication delay, that we have a mode of communication, to just getting the child and the family ready for that transition. So it's the service coordinator, the grandparent who's acting as parent, and the EI team that will prepare for that big transition to preschool services or another early care and education program. Does that answer your question?
Oh, that's great. It's just I know that families, when you are in a program that's time limited, then sometimes the issue comes up with, now where do we go when
Yes.
we're getting to the end of that program, and what's available to us. So that's great to have that transition planning going on.
Yes, and it's a requirement of IDEA, so we have to do it. But it's the right thing to do, right? We want to make sure we don't just want to say goodbye. We want to make sure that you're well connected and want this experience for your child. So I will say that is probably when you think about you have an infant or a toddler and you've gone through the early intervention program and they've done very well. You've bonded with your team, you've bonded with your service coordinator. It is sometimes difficult, but with really strong transition planning and really walking the family through each step and explaining what's going on and what will be happening and what will be different, it really can be a successful and smooth transition, and that's the goal. Again, you're not alone. Your EI team is here for both you and your grandchild, and especially during transition. You're going to see your service coordinator more. There'll be some additional meetings with the school district, and you'll get to know that local school district rep too. And here's how to make a referral. So you can call, you can visit the website. You can even ask your pediatrician or WIC office or childcare provider to help you with it, but it's really easy. There's an online, when you go to the Ohio Early Intervention website, you'll get like a pink refer. Just click that button and fill out the form, and it'll go to. Or some people like to call directly so they're able to talk with another human being about what's going on and what their concerns are. You're welcome to do that as well. No wrong door. Here's some resources related to early intervention. So the top one is the early intervention website. It has a wealth of information. If you go exploring there, we had a federal review when a few years ago when it transitioned a lead agency from ODH to Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they were just blown back by how transparent we are because we put everything out on our website, county report cards, the resources that our provider uses, the guidance that we share with our providers. It's all there for you to read. There's a parent section that you can access to, and that's the second bullet too. So there's a whole website for parents, and you would fall into that resource. And then if you need help finding your service coordination agency or coordinator, this is the county contact. So if you ever have any concerns about your local EI program or just want to reach out to them, it's got a list. It's a Ohio map. You just hover over your county, and then it'll identify the contract manager and the FCFC coordinator. And then this is what to do if, oh, it's blank there. Okay, I'll have to find that. So I will add to that slide, since I have to do it anyway, the resources available to grandparents. And it would include the sparkler. And I'm just going to see if I can, I wonder if I sent it somewhere else. But I'll have to get that slide. I apologize that that's not on there. But Ohio Help Me Grow website, and it's exactly as I say, ohiohelpmegrow.org is a huge resource for parents and for the community. They have community resource directories. And so it's all you do is you put in your county and the resource that you're looking for. And pardon me. And it'll give you options of where to go for these resources. So things like diapers or clothing, utility assistance, or things like support, mental health support, those kind of things will show up. And then I have information on the ASQ Sparkler as well that you can access. And that is where you just download the app and you can track and monitor your grandchild's developmental progress. And you can also get information about the next developmental milestone and get activities to work on that. Okay. I'll fill that in. Any outstanding questions?
Well, that was very comprehensive. Miss Dewberry had to leave. She had some um, urgent matter come up, so I'm going to finish out our meeting here. But I want to thank you, Ms. Fox, for it was a thorough presentation, and as to me, it provides a lot of information for families that probably just don't know if they're in that situation where to go. Is there anybody on the call? I know there's one caregiver, and if there are any others, please put your name in the chat so we make sure that you would be eligible for the $50 gift card. But is there anybody on the call who has worked with early intervention services? I know there's quite a few agency people on the call too. I recognize them also. I don't know if any of the agencies that are online have worked with early intervention services with their families.
Hi, I'm with the Ohio Department of Children and Youth. I have had some young adults be connected. I'm also a developer with the Bridges program, so we've had some young adults who have connected, but I'm actually a former early intervention specialist, then turned into developmental specialist for 13 years in Delaware County before I came here. So
good. We have to stop by and say hi.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is important when you talk about families being able to contact the intervention program just because of what they've noticed. I know in our family, as a personal experience, one of our grandchildren, when he was born, at about the age of 2, we were my husband and I were grandparents. We were picking up some signs of sort of not communicating and some other issues. He would communicate, but it would be repetitive. He would be repeating back, and there for a while he was nonverbal. So being grandparents and being concerned, sometimes parents take a while before they recognize that there may be some issues, just because they want their child to be, normal, not having issues. And so as we went along, I think, with some of our conversations, we were able to encourage them to have him, have some type of an evaluation done of him. And as a result of that, he was diagnosed with autism, and that was about at age 2 or so. And so they were able to. I'm not sure if if they accessed early intervention at that point, but they, began to get him involved in assessments and looking at programs for him before he went into school. And so he's 17 years old now, like Miss Dewberry. He'll be a senior next year in high school. And they've recognized his limitations, they've recognized his strengths, and they've dealt with both of those. And so hopefully he will be transitioning into some independent living kinds of situations. But it is important to not not overlook what you see, and what is apparent to you that may be some issues, and just have somebody look and evaluate, and a professional
Right.
to determine before you wait too long, and before some of those things become a little bit more challenging to deal with. So everything you put out here is such great information for those caregivers who have infants, and quite a few of them take infants at the early stages,
Yeah.
possibly right out of the hospital, just because of the
Yes.
circumstances. Either
Mhm.
the parent is in prison, or they have determined that the parent can't have the child because of drug or alcohol exposure. So a lot of grandparents and other caregivers do get children at the infant stage or early on. And so this would be important for them to be connecting to,
Right.
and hopefully those people that they come in contact with encourage that and provide this information, because it's just in the best interest of the child.
And Barbara, I found the slides, and
Oh,
so
there it is.
this will be
Okay.
so that is the ASQ Sparkler app. It's free. It is a very popular app. I think over 4,000 parents are using it right now. We thought, oh, 500 or 600, but no, it's been quite a successful implementation. But it's so useful, and this is birth through 5. So even for children that are over 3, this is very helpful. This was the information about Ohio Help Me Grow, the ASQ program, which is that Sparkler, the Community Resource Directory. Family Connects is the newborn RN home visit to any parent in Ohio who delivered within 3 weeks. So it's kind of a postpartum home visiting program. And then a home visiting program for pregnant women. And then and this is the refer or sign up. You can refer to one of these programs, or you can sign up for one of these programs. And then here's some more information about early care and education programs that I thought grandparents might be interested in or could access. And these are publicly funded childcare, the special needs childcare, and the childcare choice program.
So these are all great resources that I think any caregiver can appreciate. And again, once that you're able to provide us with the PowerPoint, we will definitely post it on our website for those families that weren't able to attend today, and will have access to that information, and be able to look into any supports that they might need through the early intervention program. Does anybody else have any questions or anything that they want to say before we go off the presentation? I know Mr. Browder is online, and he's our board member of the coalition, and so I don't know if you have anything.
Well, I just want to thank you again, Diane. I think you did an absolutely fabulous job. As Barbara has said, this information is very needed, and we often hear from families where they are running up against where do they go to get help. And so, grandparents and other relatives, now we'll have something that we can direct them to. And I just think, as caregivers, we appreciate everything that they do. And, oftentimes, particularly when grandparents particularly are reparenting, it's not easy when you start reparenting again and you've been away from parenting for 40 or 50 years and you have to start again. And so having those resources are just vital. And so we do appreciate it. Okay.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I will announce the recipient of our $50 gift card. It is Miss Karen Bodie. And so thank you, Miss Bodie, for participating today. And thank all of those who joined our um, presentation today. Hopefully it's given you information to take back to your agency or take back to your family. And if you know caregivers, or if you're in a group, support group, there is the online support group that happens there twice a week. If you meet with them, and you may want to pass this along if you know caregivers are experiencing some of these issues with their children. So yeah, please pass it along, and it will be on the website shortly. So thank you very much, Diane, for participating. We hope you feel better and recover from your cold, and we will hopefully, be able to encourage other caregivers and support them, with their families. We get a lot of calls and emails about what do I do here. So I have this information. Our team has this information, and so it will be something we can use in the future also.
Thank
So
you.
thank you all for joining, and have a great Monday, and take care.